Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman. This little guy is, of course, the child. And we want to welcome you back to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sitdown. And if the child is here and my Mando shirt is on, you know already what we're talking about. So let's not waste any time. Why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat. We are getting ready to dive in, spoiler free, into The Mandalorian, Season 2, Chapter 11, The Heiress. And let me shout out all you Mandalorian fans who did not like last week's episode, who are getting tired of these side missions that don't have anything to do with the main mission. And let me tell you that if what you were looking for is some main mission action for Din Djarin and the child, this is the episode you've been waiting for. Ooh, is this a goodie, man? I so enjoyed this episode. It's the shortest episode of the entire season. I think it ran about 35 minutes, something like that, but oh, is it jam-packed full of goodies. And it's a really hard episode to talk about without spoiling things, because there's some major spoilers at play that should get folks pretty freaking excited as we watch the day unfold here. But it is an episode that is just fantastic. It gives you that child cuteness that you're looking for, and there's some really fun elements of the child's storyline this time that tie directly back into the last episode and things that people kind of didn't like, which I want to address. I understand that Frog Lady had the last of her race in that little tub, and I understand that the child eating those eggs is kind of disturbing, but that's the point, isn't it? Like, the whole point is to kind of lay something that's kind of dark in on a character that's so freaking adorable that even when he does that dark thing, it's still freaking really cute to watch. And thus you end up with kind of like this little dark humor. But yes, it is one of these things that's like, well, it's kind of messed up, child. Yes, it is. But it's also a brilliant callback to Season 1 when he was eating actual frogs. It also allows Din Djarin to, get to play father, and he does that more in this episode. I'm really loving how Din is becoming very much a father to the child and the way that he looks out and takes care of him. I just love that evolution of the character, and we'll definitely get more into that on the spoiler side. But as far as, that father-son type relationship that he has with the child, the way that the child behaves last week, while albeit kind of dark and messed up, also very much adolescence, you know what I mean? Like, dad says no, and he very adamantly says, no, don't do that. Well, I'm obviously going to go do that. And that's one of those things that kind of ties into the fact that, like, yes, he's over 100 years old, but for his race and his species, he's super, super, super young. And that kind of response, I think some of what he was doing was that kind of like, dad said no, so now I'm definitely going to do it. And, these little eggs were tasty. And it sets up something in episode 3 that allows you to go, oh, that's kind of cool. Look what they did there. So, in general, when talking about the last episode, what you'll find if you were not a fan of, Clone Wars, Rebels, things that Dave Filoni has worked on, quite often, things you see in one episode that might seem inconsequential or just like, why is this happening, tie back into the story, and Favreau certainly weaves that thread here for the child. His storyline is great. Like I said, it ties back into that stuff that's going on last week, gives him some interesting moments, and he just has some of the best child moments, man. There's some full-on laughs in this episode for him, and lots of Baby Yoda cooing going on, man. And he is adorable throughout. And like I said, there's an interesting tie to something that, to things that were going on with him last week. But the actual episode in and of itself is all about our man, Din Djarin, man. Oh, ho, 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 ho. It's funny, because this certainly ties into the main mission. This is, we get a piece in this episode that literally, without this piece, we cannot move forward. But at the same time, this is another episode that turns into a side mission for the Mandalorian. In order to get that vital information that he needs to get us to the next place, he's got to help some folks. And this is one of those cool kind of Western things where we've got our gunslinger, the Mandalorian, on his main quest just kind of going about his day and doing what he's got to try to do, when all of a sudden you kind of intersect some other people who are also on a quest, and we get to help those people with that quest and then leave them to that quest. Because obviously the Mandalorian's got his own thing to do. And I thought that was kind of like a really cool thing to weave in there, where it's like, oh, look, we have a mission, they have a mission. Our missions are going to cross paths for a second, and then they're going to keep going on their separate ways. But, oh, does it give you some freaking fantastic Mandalorian action. Where the side mission that Din finds himself in this week, did it allow for some spectacle, and did it allow for some callbacks, and did it allow for some Easter eggs for you hardcore Star Wars fans, specifically Dave Filoni fans of Rebels and Clone Wars. That's all I'm gonna say. But we get lots of stuff in this episode where if you're a fan of the content that's come before this, oh, you're just licking your chops, because you get to see some really cool things. Like, there's a moment in this show that you don't see happen very often in Hollywood and television. And it's one of those things where the minute it takes place, you just, if you've been watching the Star Wars universe, for a long time, specifically the Filoni-verse, you get really excited because you're like, that's awesome. And I love that Favreau and Filoni allowed what happens in this episode to happen in this episode, because it's a really cool thing for one of the characters. And overall, like I said, the action is phenomenal, man. Like, we're flying around, we're shooting blasters, we're maybe taking on some Imperial stormtroopers. I don't want to spoil too much, but hey, there is a lot of fun to be had, and all the action is awesome. Whether it's hand-to-hand combat fighting, jetpack flying combat, or just blasters, man. There's some really cool things, and some really cool things around what's going on with Din, specifically through the action. Like, the first piece of action we get, you kind of see one thing from him. Then when you get to like the next piece of it, you kind of almost see him turn into a bystander for a second, where he's like, okay. And then he pulls the coolest thing in the whole episode, where you're just like, that's my dude. And it's one of these things where director Bryce Dallas Howard, returning for her second episode and her first episode of this season, absolutely knocks this thing out of the ballpark, man. Just really had a really good sense of filming and shooting the action sequences that are in this, and it just creates spectacle and just moments that you go, that was freaking badass, and lines up so perfectly with that guy. And the other thing, too, that Howard and Favreau do with this episode is, as much fun as we get to have with the child this episode, also some legit scary moments. The way they build to that scary moment is really artfully done. And it's one of those things where if you're sitting back and you're watching, you're taking in how Favreau is weaving these stories together. You just sit there and go, that was a cool little arc to throw into this story before we get all that super cute, child stuff. But overall, man, I really thought Bryce Dallas Howard, like I said, commanded this episode quite well. It looks gorgeous. The action is fast-paced and highly entertaining at all times. And like I said, you had the task of doing something that I think Star Wars fans have been very much looking forward to at some point, and did it in a way where, as a Star Wars fan, you're like, that rocked. I'm so happy that just happened. I hope we get to go back into that world a little bit. And on the Favreau side of things, major world building pieces happening in this episode. We're really building out the lore of our Mandalorian, Din Djarin, as well as adding in other elements to this entire world that the show, The Mandalorian, is kind of building out. This little Mandalorian universe is starting to grow and expand. And the elements that we're playing with are a lot of fun. And I think, Bryce Dallas Howard does a really good job of not only entertaining us in this episode, but really does a nice job of taking what Favreau has written, putting it on the screen, and expanding the universe in a way where you're like, yeah, I hope we can go back over there. And like, this is one of those episodes where you're like, I would take a spin off from The Mandalorian. That could be pretty badass. And I hope we do it because it would be awesome. So I'm going to stop talking now before I start spoiling things. Because like I said, this is an episode with plenty of spoilers and just fun things in there for Star Wars fans. And if you are a diehard or someone who's been riding with more than just the movies, guarantee me you're gonna freak out this episode. That's not what you think, but you're gonna freak out, I promise, and you're gonna be so happy by the end of it. So I loved it, man. The Heiress was a ton of fun, man. This is action-packed, just high-end Mandalorian content, man. This is the stuff I think that everybody is here for, and the stuff where you're like, give me more of this. So loved the Heiress, but now I want to know what you're thinking, man. Did you check out The Mandalorian Chapter 11 this morning? I wanted to watch it at 3 a.m. Us people out here on the East Coast kind of get screwed because we got to wait till 3. And then my Disney Plus app, for whatever reason, did not want to update today. And I wasn't able to throw it on until 4. And then I went on to see if anybody else was having problems. And everybody was tweeting about the episode. I'm like, what the hell? So if you had issues with getting to the episode this morning, if you were up at this ridiculous hour like myself out here on the East Coast, did you have any problems? Let me know if I wasn't the only one. And then obviously what I really want to know is what you think about the episode. No spoilers, don't spoil it, but how satisfying of an episode was that? How great was the action? How well do you think Bryce Dallas Howard did behind the camera for her second go around here in The Mandalorian? What elements of the world building and storytelling that Favreau is hitting worked for you? Like I said, don't spoil anything, but let me know what you're thinking, good, bad, indifferent, on The Mandalorian, Chapter 11, The Heiress. That all goes down below in the comment section. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the C-Man the whole rest of the way, man, we got 5 episodes left. You want to be here for all 5 of those episode reviews, spoiler reviews and breakdowns following the non-spoiler. You want to just be here for any kind of content that we're putting up, and you want to show a little love support and you haven't yet, do what the child wants you to do, man. This is the way. Jump over there, hit that subscribe button, come join the C-Maniacs, man, and hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time, the C-Man's Cinema Sit-Down. I've been the C-Man. This has been the child. That's Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, and for another Mandalorian review in the books, I am the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace. Well, that's all live and breathe. You still here? Check out a video like this one or this one, and hit the subscribe button so you can get alerts and check out everything the C-Man's got at the Cinema Sit-Down.